You do not live here. You do not speak any of our languages. You do not know our history. Your mother is a white American, yet you presume to speak to me as if you knew anything about me, as if you knew anything about my son, as if you knew anything about this country. You do not. You do not. Is the liar, is my pig. May kwento kang pang-drama na naman, parang pang TV na walang katapusan. Hanggang kailan ka ba ganyan? Hindi mo ba alam na walang pupuntahan ang pagtiyaga mo dyan sa boyfriend mong tanga? Na wala nang ginawa kundi ang paluhain ka sa libo-libong pagkakataon na tayo'y nagkasama. Ilang ulit pa lang kitang nakitang masaya, naiinis akong isipin na ginaganyan kanya. Siguro ay hindi niya lang alam ang iyong tunay na alaga. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm sure you're wondering why I sang that song. It's because there's a part in this book where our characters had fun doing karaoke singing, you know, partnered with San Miguel Beer and Chicharon. And one of the characters sang a Parokya ni Edgar song. That's I did my karaoke piece too. And yeah, so yeah, anyway, it's the month of August, and in the Philippines, we are celebrating what we call Buwan ng Wika. The month of August is basically a celebration of Philippine local languages. I mean, we have roughly 170 up to 175 languages spoken throughout the archipelago. This is my entry for Wikathon. Under the first category would be the modern Pinoy, where the setting happens in the Philippines from year 2000 and up to the present times. The second category would be under new to me, and it's a Filipino author that's new to you basically and you haven't read any works from yet. And the third category, it's under Filipino diaspora. It's a work of an author who is a Filipino and has migrated to other countries, or this author's parents are Filipinos who left the Philippines and eventually migrated to other countries. This readathon is hosted by my fellow Filipino booktubers. You may check their channels out. So this book that I'm going to give a review on is published in June 2019, and it's told in first-person perspective in the present tenses, and it's a 2019 US National Book Award finalist, and it's set in the USA, and majority takes place in the Philippines. From a Filipino-American author, it's the Patron Saints of Nothing by Ribay. So what is the story about? So this story is about Jason Reguero, or Jay, as he prefers to be called. Now, this story is about the Reguero family, basically. We'll follow Jay's journey all the way from the USA and in the Philippines. The story begins as Jay, while in Michigan, USA, at the age of 17. He's just finished senior high school and he plans to enjoy spending his summer playing video games. He also has mixed feelings towards, going to college. And so he tries to divert his attention, not thinking of his future or what really wants to take up in college, by playing video games in the meantime. And so he's undecided yet in that part, but he already had taken up entrance examinations to some universities, which he all passed. Anyway, his parents are working in the medical field, and his mother is a doctor, a white American, and Jay's father is a Filipino who works as a nurse. Jay is a Filipino-American kid, as emphasized by his mother in this story. Jay was born in the Philippines, but when he turned 1, his family then decided to move to the United States for good. And so, earlier in the story, while playing a video game, Jay's father comes up to him and announces that his cousin, June, the same age as him, is now dead. And June lives in the Philippines. And June has just recently died, as assumed to be using illegal drugs. Or he may have been a drug pusher. We're not clear on that part yet. So June was killed by the police as part of President Duterte's drug war in the Philippines. And so after hearing the news from his father, Jay turns emotional and he thinks that no one just dies at the age of 17, and that growing up, Jay and June become close as cousins, and it was just in 2010 when Jay last visited the Philippines that he and June played around, and after his family's vacation, they went back to the US eventually, and Jay and June still communicate through letters after that. So somewhat from 2010 up to 2015, they had some exchanges of letters, then it stopped. The reason they don't communicate through Facebook, IG, or email during this time is that June's father, who is a police chief in the Philippines, prohibits his children, using any social media. So June and Jay's only option is to communicate through physical letters in that period. Anyway, after learning the news that his cousin is now dead, Jay feels so guilty. How come he never replies to June's letter anymore? It's like 4 years already that they stopped communicating, and now June is dead. So Jay then decided to do something about this. He still has time before the summer ends, and before he goes to college, he decided he could visit Philippines in the meantime and to really find out what really happened to June. What's the truth about his death? How come his family, his father and Uncle Manning, who is a police chief in the Philippines, are silent about the death in the family, and that there was no funeral held for June? And how come these adults are not doing anything about his cousin June's death? And so Jay talked to his parents about visiting Philippines, and this is now in the present time, 2019. He reasoned that it would be somewhat a vacation for him to clear his mind before going to college. At first, his parents are doubtful, of course. They didn't want him to visit the Philippines because what's going on right now, and that of all the countries he can go to, why the Philippines when his parents can actually afford to travel and send him to Europe or something? But in the end, Jay is able to convince them, and eventually his parents bought him a round-trip ticket, and on the condition that he's only gonna stay in the Philippines for 10 days and that he shouldn't do anything other than meeting his relatives in the Philippines and just to stay and just be with them closely. And so moving on, while in the Philippines, Jay will gradually discover the life of June. How was he growing up? And Jay will get a taste of June's life being in his uncle's house, the police chief Tito Manning, and this will be in Manila. And Jay will also live in his Tita Charo's house in Cavite, that she used to be a lawyer and now runs a charity non-profit organization who helps women, those who are victims of trafficking. Jay is also able to visit their province, which is Bicol, later on in the story, where his grandparents and Tito Danilo, who is a priest, live. Well, in the Philippines, Jay will soon discover what really happened to June. Who killed him? Did he really use drugs? Did he really become a drug pusher? And was it accident? Was it because of extrajudicial killing? Mistaken identity? Was he killed by a vigilante? Was it just a blackmail? Or was it just a wrongful death? And so we'll follow Jay's adventure in the Philippines as we navigate the place and slowly uncover what led to June's untimely death. So basically the setting is from the USA going to the Philippines, and from Manila to Cavite to Bicol and back to the US again. What are your least favorite parts of the book? Siguro yung idea na yung mga characters ni Sir Randy Ribay, it's too good to be true. Para mapadali yung story, para given na lahat, para lahat ng aspeto, kumbaga dapat matalakay ni Sir Randy Ribay, yung mga characters niya sa librong to. Imagine mo may Tita Chato ka, na may kinalaman sa batas, yung trabaho. And then may Tito Manning ka, may kinalaman sa mga namatay o may kaugnayan sa droga, na police chief. Tapos pagdating sa Diyos, andyan si Tito Danilo na pare. And then yung love interest ng bida is a journalism student. So doon ako natawa sa go through the book. Parang wala pa ata ako nakita growing up na ganong family yung setup. Yung kompleto na yung mga kursong kinuha nila. Yung ganon. So you have someone from medical field, you have someone from the law, you have someone from the police force, and you have someone from the church. So, diba, sa part na yun, parang yung characterization, hindi ako convinced na basta na lang nagkataon yung mga kinuha nilang kurso at nagkataon may drug war sa plot na to, at lahat yung mga yon sakop na nangyayari sa buhay ng tao sa Pilipinas. So, medyo, ako dun, hindi ako masyadong convinced. Pero yung execution ng narrative, maayos naman naitawid ni Sir Randy Ribay. Pero yun nga, parang may konting tanong lang sa mga characters na yun. Parang, hindi nga. It's just for me. Nagmukha kasi siyang hindi believable. Pero may mga parts din na pilit Yung hindi akma yung mga eksena minsan. Yung parang may pakaramdam ako na hindi natural. Hindi siya organic yung mga situation. Kumbaga parang orchestrated masyado yung plot. And opinion ko lang yun. And you'll know what I mean if you get to read this book. Having these characters without a doubt, it was given Sir Randy Ribay easy access to touch on the issues that are happening in the Philippines. napadali niya yung pagkikwento kasi nga yung mga characters niya established na eh. Kumbaga, ano yun, coincidence lang ba yun? Nagkataon lang ba or sinadya niya? Or kailangan natin dito ng suspension of disbelief? Isang narrative style sa pagkukwento na wag nang questionin basta paniwalaan mo na lang kasi feeling ko parang akma yun sa fantasy. Problem I guess is that Sir Ribay lacked deeper characterization towards these people kasi parang panlabas lang yung mga role nila. Parang tauhan lang sila sa dula. Oh, ikaw si lawyer, ikaw si police chief, ikaw pari ka, ikaw nurse ka, and ikaw mag-aaral ka ng journalism. So parang okay, the reader wasn't really given a chance, to get under the skin of the characters. Para mas may foundation, kumaga, para mas ramdam mo yung kinala mo bawat characters eh. Hindi kasi nangyari dito yun eh. So parang pinadaan lang sila sa story. Andun lang para gabayan si Jay and maitawid lang yung plot ng kwento. Gamitin silang kasangkapan. Alam mo yun? Yun lang, parang nababawan ako. Siguro, mahirap ikwento yun kasi first person narrative ito eh. Unless siguro, third person omniscient narrator yung ginamit para mas makagalaw ng malaya si Sir Ribay to get into the thoughts of the characters. We're able to get into their motives, who they really are. So, yung pala ang hirap pag first person narrative yung ginamit mo. Kasi kagagaling ko lang kay Sir Ian McEwan ng Atonement. And yung characterization dito talaga namang intense. Alam mo yun? Alam mo bawat characters sino sila. Napaka-effective pala ng third person omniscient narrator. Unlike pag first person perspective, gaya dito sa kwento na to. Parang nakulangan ako kasi hindi masyadong nabigyan ng chance yung mga characters eh. Medyo kilala mo lang dito si si Jay, yung narrator. Pero wala eh. Anyway, pangalawang hindi ko nagustuhan, may mga scenes dito na pilit. Alam mo yun, yung di naman nakakaiyak, pero pilit na iiyak si Jay. Parang sa akin, okay. Tapos, tsaka yung sa first half ng kwento, na bagalan ako. Nagstay pa siya sa US, then sa aeroplano, then paglapag niya sa Pinas. Yun yung mangyayari sa first 100 pages of the story. Bago siya lumapag ng tuluyan sa Pilipinas. Eh, pwede namang pabilisin yun, kumbaga. Diretso na lapag ng Pilipinas para alam na agad natin yung nangyari kay June. Alam mo yun? Yun lang. Halos first 100 pages, medyo na boring lang ako. Kasi parang hindi naman na dapat nagtuunan ng pansin pa yun. Pangatlong hindi ko nagustuhan, yamot ako sa character ni Tito Manning. Mainis ka sa kanya kasi ipoportray siya dito as a villainous character in this book. Strict, talagang siya yung masusunod. Batas siya dito. Sa family, lagi siya yung may say. Siya yung uncle mong epal. Kumbaga, siya yung uncle mo or auntie mo na kaiinisan mo pag family gathering. Kasi nangungumpara siya ng anak ng achievements ng iba. Alam mo yun, ipamumukha niya sa'yo na failure ka. Ganun siyang tatay. And hindi siya nakikinig. Old school na magulang, we can say. And siya lang yung magaling, hindi nakikinig sa anak. Mahilig siyang mag-provoke, mag-side comments, kumbaga. And rude, bale. Wala siyang pake sa nararamdaman mo. Insensitive siya sa mga kapatid, sa mga anak. And so, while reading this book, the question that's running in my mind was, since the topic here is President Duterte's war on drugs, what would be the answer or suggestion or the best method of doing the right way in this drug war? Or where no one gets hurt, and killed? Because it seems that what's happening in this campaign is not a success, where thousands of people have died already, as what the news is saying. I'm glad that Sir Ribay gave me an answer, though it's cliche and very predictable, and you may call it a safe answer. And I'm not really convinced there, and not really satisfied. I have suggestions in my mind too, but sa akin na lang. Kasi baka ano masabi ko. Pero saludo ako kay Sir Randy kasi naisip niya yun. And also, I like the map of the Philippines being shown on the first page of this book. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, the whole Philippines. One thing though, when I read the last page about the author's note, here, dito, have a look. The name of our president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte. I'm not sure if it's typo error. Of all the words in this book, to have a typo error here, they have misspelled our president's name as Rodrigo Duterte. Kasi sikat si President Duterte pero bakit Rodrigo ang spelling nito? Rodrigo. Parang ano ba doon? Sinadya? Joke lang. Anyway. What did you like about the book? Madami akong nagustuhan. Abangan nyo yung confrontation ni Jay at Tito Manning. Makapigil hininga. May pasagan ng bote, may sakalan, may pingutan ng tenga. Medyo pisikalan. Typical Pinoy teleserye. Pero nagustuhan ko naman, mapapakapit ka. Though for Jay, at the age of 17, when I was in that age, hindi ko kayang mag-confront ng adult sa family ko, especially if it's a police chief officer, diba? Pero for a typical Filipino family who has values and was trained to respect the elders, parang hindi ako convinced doon na Jay, as 17-year-old guy, was able to confront Tito Manning na, alam mo yun, talagang intense yun. It was a gripping scene. I admire Jay in that situation for standing up for what he believes in. So, yeah, nagustuhan ko yun, yung part na yun. And next is the writing style. It's easy to get into. The storytelling is very easy to follow. Very modern writing. The English language used in the book is everyone's everyday language that we normally use. And any young adult can easily understand what this book is about, lalo na sa mga kabataang Pinoy. Madaming makaka-relate. And nagustuhan ko rin yung kwento kasi nostalgic siya for me. Para akong nagbiyahe ulit pa uwi ng Pinas. Bakasyon, lalo na 10 days lang stay ni Jay sa Pinas. And so normal na OFW, kagaya ko, ang 10 days madami na yun. Pag nauwi ako ng Pinas magbabakasyon, parang everyday counts. Madami kang happenings, lahat ma-appreciate mo in that 10 days time. Andyan yung beach, syempre, andyan yung masasarap na pagkain Pinoy, nakakamiss. Andyan yung karaoke, syempre, hindi mawawala. And then family gatherings, na-enjoy ko yung parts na yun sa libro na to. Nakakamiss magbakasyon sa Pinas. Natatawa ako kasi nung umuwi si Jay, may balikbayan box siya. Tapos lahat ng relatives niya may pasalubong. Sana all. Masaya sa pakiramdam na nag-aabot ng pasalubong. Syempre, nasa culture na nating mga Pinoy yun. Syempre, the story is suspenseful. It has mystery, I must say. It's a good yarn of a story. It's somewhat coming-of-age story. It also has moments of angst ng bida natin, of doubts sa nangyayari sa paligid natin. Yung yamot mo na pagbata ka kasi, ang pakiramdam ng mga adult, wala tayong alam. 'Di ba? Sabi ni Taylor Swift dun sa kakalabas lang yung album, yung Folklore. Sabi niya doon, when you are young, they assume you know nothing. And totoo yun. Ganun na ganun yung kwento natin dito. So, na-capture ni Sir Randy Ribay yun. Galing. And then, gusto ko din yung pinakita niya na napaka-importante ng communication within family members. Na kailangan ng mga magulang should maintain open communication to their children, knowing what's going on with their children. Diba? And discuss things, actually. It's nice to hear both parties get to understand things better. And mas magaan ng buhay eh. And then yung thinking na sila yung parents, na lagi sila yung tama, and then walang say mga bata kasi I think may time sa buhay natin na need din makinig ng mga magulang natin sa anak. So kung ano yung sinasabi ng anak, kailangan makinig yung mga magulang minsan para harmonious ba yung relationship. And communication talaga is a key para magkaunawaan ng pamilya, Pinakita ni Sir Randy Ribay yun, which I liked. And I also like the narrative technique na ginawa ni Sir Randy dito because at the beginning of the story, June is already dead. So the only way for him to tell the readers who he is, about his life and his thoughts, is by letting us know him through the physical letters that Jay keeps and being read as the story unfolds through the book. And so nagustuhan ko yung ginawa ni Sir Randy Ribay din, yung sabi ni Rizal na ang kabataan daw ang pag-asa ng bayan. Nahawak natin yung pagbabago. Though hindi na ako pasok sa age group na yun. Though again, it's cliche, na wag matakot magtanong, wag matakot maghanap ng sagot, at matutong manindigan sa kung ano sa tingin mo yung tama. Maging mapagmasid, mapagmatsyag, mapangahas, matanglawin. I also liked how Randy Ribay playfully come up with the book's title. I liked that idea there. The way the author came up with that title is to me a reminiscent of JD Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. If you read that classic book with a memorable protagonist, which is Holden Caulfield, but this is in no way having the same plot with this book, mind you. And I got only reminded of how JD Salinger gave us the title Catcher in the Rye. But knowing that part in here, and I just realized it's kind of the same effect there. It's for you guys to find out how did it come to be. The patron saints of nothing. Overall, I like this story. It's a satisfying read for me. There are just few moments where I felt it was forced, but overall, it's a nice story actually. Very timely, very Filipino. You guys, you may want to try this on. And there you have it guys. Maraming salamat sa panonood at pakikinig. Kung nagustuhan nyo yung video na to na ginawa ko, paki-like naman, please. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe na, please. This has been your Pinoy BookTuber. Basa-basa din pag may time. Ingat palagi. Until next time. Bye.